first time it dawned on me really that football isn't forever. From football, they might have got incredible amounts of adulation, praise, significance and importance, purpose from it. The mind is the instrument of the body. You look like someone who is shitting themselves, but most people live in the limitation box, as I call it. The only thing that stops us is the bullshit reasons we tell ourselves as to why we can't have it.
Yeah. The most useless virtue to have when you're at the top of sports, right?
No, you're just being a coward.
We're carriers of stress. We don't get stressed.
It opens new doors where previously there was only walls. The pain is the driver for someone to say, you know what, I can't stay in this current way, let me change this.
Yeah.
They work in unison. And when you do, they'll create a perfect harmony. That perimeter increases. That perimeter increases again. That perimeter increases again before you know it.
Matt Young. Some people have it in their name. Your name sounds fucking really posh.
Really posh. That's the first time I've ever been labelled as posh. I used to hate my name when I was growing up. I used to hate it. I used to think it wasn't a footballer's name. So that was always a sticking point.
You're forever young.
That was my wife and I got married, and that was not our main wedding dance, but our last song of the evening, Forever Young. So it does fit somewhere.
Yeah, it does. Matt, I've seen your social media. I've seen what you're doing, and it's really nice to see the journey of a person who moves from being an athlete, who understands what it takes to be in pressure, perform under pressure, and take those skills from their life out and start helping others to build their businesses. I think sports is one of the best levelers in the world, And I remember, obviously before the podcast, we were speaking about Kapil Dev, and I used to talk to him, and he used to say, Samir, you don't understand what sports teaches you. After a point, it's not the talent you've got, It's about the mindset. It's about resilience. It's about, it's no longer talent, and at the top, talent would be, everybody would be talented, So it's probably the most useless virtue to have when you're at the top of sports, right? You have to have a lot more than talent to succeed. And that's true for entrepreneurship as well. Most people fail as entrepreneurs. This is my personal opinion. Most people fail as entrepreneurs because not their idea is bad or it's not working. They just give up too early. It's a point where you start seeing success. But that point for some people may be 5 months, for some people 5 years, for some people 15 years, but you would see it if you don't give up. So tell me why did you pick this? It's a very difficult thing to do, to life coach people and to coach people to perform well. And how did this transition happen for you from being a pure play athlete to being a coach?
Yeah, very simply, my own failures. And what I mean by that is, as you say, and it's the same in any walk of life, when you get to a certain level of talent, it's important, but it doesn't separate. It doesn't separate. And the bits that separate are what goes on, between your ears, what goes on with you emotionally. And for me, that was always something that I was great at, mentally digging in, mentally being strong, having a great attitude, these types of things that generally you want. But the deeper qualities of self-belief, like a level of confidence within myself, a level of really understanding what I need to do to bring the best out of myself, I lacked. And through, like I said, my own failures in that area, it's what gave me a career initially because of all the mentality and everything, but it's also what diminished some of the opportunities in which I could have created for myself in that career. And when I stepped out of that area, I always knew psychology, mindset, emotions, it fascinated me, always fascinated me since I was young. And I knew I was going to do something around it. Initially, I was just a mindset coach. You never really understand these types of things. I kick a football around and I'm going to teach people about mindset now. Then you just think it's going to be that simple. And over time, that's developed, and I've really niched in on understanding that, no, in my area, emotions and extracting that high level performance and what's required, and understanding that from the perspective of failing in that area, and now helping athletes and coaches and business owners, whoever it may be, maximize that. That's really been my whole passion. So that's the main reason why.
And talk me through your transition, right? Obviously, from being a pure play sportsman to being a coach. Run me through that journey, because I'm sure it's very interesting.
Yeah, so professional football, which was my area of expertise, I say, was the age of 5 until I turned professional at 18 years old. It's like my whole life, everything. When I was at school, I never used to go to the parties, or I never used to drink alcohol, still don't. All of these things, because I was like, I'm dedicated.
Focus.
This is what I do. This is my life. At the age of 18, then I got my professional football contract. And then for the next 8 years or so, played professionally up and down the country, some good teams, some not so good teams. And then eventually my career went part-time. And my career went part-time, and that was a big hit for me. That was mentally challenging. But it was the first time it dawned on me, really, that football isn't forever. Yeah. And so, like I said to you before, I was always fascinated with psychology and mindset and all these types of things. So I started to get some qualifications. And then, transparently, February, March 2020, COVID hits.
Yeah.
And when COVID hits, it stopped part-time football. And when it stops part-time football, I'm there now looking around going, what am I going to do?
The fuck?
Exactly. And that was pretty much it. And, you know, at that stage, I was living in Wandsworth in southwest London, and I was like, what am I going to do here? So naturally, I do what all footballers do. They get their PT qualification, and they start doing fitness training and start in that area. And I loved it. It was great because it's everything I knew. But there was a part of me that really, so I did that for a little bit, not for long. I started it when I was still playing part-time football. But then within 6 months, you know, because of maybe contacts, because of the way that my work spread so quickly, I was working with Google, with Shell, a year later with the London Marathon, in terms of coaching and psychology and the mindset of what I do now. And by that time, COVID started to subside, but I had a decision, you know, do I step back into that? Or do I now want to take this new venture and this new life that I've created for myself and run with it? And I chose the latter, and honestly, it's been the best thing I've ever done.
So what were you doing with these large enterprises?
So pretty much like, especially coming off the back of COVID, there was very much a census around self-belief, confidence, the nature of well-being. And for a lot of companies, I think at that stage, and I've named a couple there and obviously a few others, there was very much an ethos around, we want our employees and we want our workers to be in a place where they're mentally and emotionally in a good place to re-enter the workplace, to feel like with the upheaval of the last 2 to 3 years, we're in a place that we feel content, we feel sound of mind, we feel like we can deal with the stresses and tribulations of these types of things. And that was very much where I was going in and working alongside these businesses, where initially it was very much a case of I'd present and show them different parts of my work, and then I might go in and work with them on a larger scale. And that's really where that stemmed from initially. Then London Marathon and things, that comes later on, where they're looking for more of what I do, which is elite performance and how to extract elite performance from mental and emotional skills. And that's where that stems.
And you speak a lot about the mind-body integration. You know, I'm a big believer in that. For benefit of people who don't understand what it means, could you elaborate on this?
My simple way of putting this is they work in unison. The mind is the instrument of the body. And generally, and sometimes I've heard it elaborated in the other way, that the body would be the instrument of the mind. But I believe that the body is the epicenter of all emotions. You know, how you use your physiology as an example will send direct signals to your brain of how to think and feel. And I don't believe you can have a strong, fulfilled, purposeful mindset if your emotional epicenter, meaning your body, is in a low vibrancy, low energy, weak type of state. And that's really where the integration comes from, because I tried it myself. You know, I was an example of that. I was a professional footballer, so I'm not talking about strong as in I can lift heavy in the gym. I just mean in terms of the way that I use my physiology. I was a professional footballer and I had a strong mind, but the emotions that come from my body wasn't really, they were weak. I wasn't in unison. you know, I'd step onto the pitch and my body language would look like, you can see it within him, he's not believing in himself today.
Yeah, and this is so funny, you know, when you're watching a live game,
Exactly.
you see somebody coming on the pitch and you can just say, this guy's fucked.
There we go. And that was exactly it. And I never forget this. There was one game that I played and we started the first 10 minutes and I used to play right back. So defence on the right for your listeners. And I remember their manager shout out, play on the right back, he's weak as piss. And this was 10 minutes into a game. And at that stage, I'm sitting there, I'm standing there on the pitch and I'm going, I've barely touched the ball. I have barely been involved in the game. I haven't really done anything wrong. I haven't done anything right.
What the fuck are you
But why have
talking
they highlighted me? And at that stage, I didn't know what on earth he was talking about. I didn't understand why I'd been highlighted. But then after, and years later, I watch now footage back of myself. And sometimes I can see I carry myself in a way, and lo and behold, I have a great game, I feel good. Or I make a couple of good passes and I see myself grow in character.
Yeah.
I watch other games and I'm like, you look like a shell of a man. You look like someone who is, I know we can talk openly here, who is shitting themselves that you don't make a mistake.
Yeah.
And oftentimes people approach this in life.
Yeah.
You know, they are constantly on tender hooks with things, you know, and you can see within them there's no conviction, there's no drive, there's no purpose to follow through on anything. So then when it goes wrong, they go, oh, I knew this was going to happen.
Fear of failure.
Look at the way you've approached it, though.
Yeah.
And these are all the things that intertwine into me now allowing myself to know that these two instruments, the mind and the body, they work in unison. And when you do, they'll create a perfect harmony. And that's pretty a big part
And
of
that's what they say in sports, you know, when you say somebody is in good form, they're still the same talent, everything is still the same. It's just their mindset is such that, you know, we say in cricket, I don't know if you watch cricket, we say he's hit a purple patch. The purple patch is fucking whatever he hits, it just goes out of the park. And the reason it's happening is not because he suddenly got some new skills, but it's just because his mindset is completely changed. You know, and I think people over exaggerate on talent or say that, you know, oh man, this guy was talented. They don't understand how much effort goes in to succeed after that. And that's true for entrepreneurship. Like you said, people fail. There's a fear of failure. So every time you're taking a decision, you're trying to evaluate. Just go with the flow, what you think is right at that point of time. You know, post facto, you know, you can always connect the dots backwards. But at that point of time, when you took a decision, you just need to know 60-70% chances that the decision was right, and then you fucking go ahead with it.
It's so funny you say this, because I use this analogy that 70% is perfect.
Correct.
Because 70% is like, people are like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, it needs to be right. I'm like, respectfully, I don't mean this in any rude way or in sort of any sort of a brash way, but I'm like, no, you're just being a coward.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to say that 100% of things need to be right for me to do this. Well, when is that ever the case in anyone's life? For none of us. No. And so when it comes to these areas of exactly what we're talking about here, I'm 100% agreement that most people, they fail before they walk through the door because of the way in which they're approaching it. And that's the big part of where my work changes things for people.
Let's go back to your football days when you played, and who did you play for, and what was your career like, and what are your friends doing, you know, from back in football days? Are you in touch with them, and what do typically athletes do after they kind of give up the sport and pick on other careers? Where are they, you know, just if you were to plot, you know, all your friends, people you know from the industry, coaches, players, where are they, and do you guys keep in touch?
Yeah, so my all started for me from the age of 9 till 16. I was at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. That was wonderful. I used to play as a centre-back, which the big, ugly, tall defenders. And obviously I was too pretty for that. So then they got rid of me, and they also said I wasn't going to be tall enough. You know, I've been this height, just under 6 foot now, since I was 15. So I was early riser and then sort of stayed there. So then I moved to Southampton, which I was there for 4 years, and they moved me to right back. And that's where I had my first professional contract, and we spent 2 years with them in the Premier League, although didn't play. And then left there, went to Sheffield Wednesday, up to Carlisle.
Wow.
That was different, living up there. 6 months earlier, I was like, down in Southampton. I was up in Carlisle in January. That was a real baptism of fire. But that was wonderful. I absolutely loved it up there because it was my real first taste of real professional football, playing week in, week out, playing in an environment where lots of supporters every week and very passionate yet sort of quite tight-knit fan base. And then from there, I floated around a few other clubs. I was at Woking and had a few trials elsewhere. And then my career started to go part-time. Mm-hmm. And that's where, as we alluded to earlier, I then looked at other options. And from that time, football's, it's like any industry. When you're in a team with each other, you're all like a band of brothers.
Correct.
Everyone's like, you're in, and you're like, God, you know what? These are mates for life.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, my best man at my wedding was a player I played alongside at Southampton. So there are like really close-knit people. I was in a team when I was growing and coming through at Southampton with Luke Shaw, who's now at Manchester United, plays for England. Callum Chambers, who obviously for a while played in the Premier League and now dropped down. James Ward-Prowse, who's now West Ham. And a couple of these lads I still stay in touch with. And a few others, Jack Stevens, great friend, was a great friend at the time, still stay in contact from time to time. They're still playing at Southampton as well. All of these players we come through, and at the time you're like, great, this is our team. This is the way that we are. Yeah. But you find very quickly, I'm sure it's in every other industry, I leave, I go to Sheffield Wednesday, and then all of a sudden you don't talk as much.
Yeah.
And then after Sheffield Wednesday, you meet a new bunch of people, and you think, this is my group now. And then you leave there, and then you go here, and then you go. And by the end of it, I think probably for most footballers, you may be left with a handful of people who you'll be in contact with for life.
Yeah.
A handful.
And this is exactly what life is in every field that you have.
Exactly.
I still remember, man, back in the day when I used to work in the big corporate world, in the banking world, and you would feel that these are my friends, man. Mm-hmm. Fucking hell, we're going to do so many things together in life. And then life happens.
Right. And I think at that time, though, everyone's in harmony.
Yes.
Everyone's in harmony. Everyone's on the same trajectory of life. Everyone's moving forward and looking to break into the first team, and then looking to, as Luke and Callum and James have gone on to play many, many Premier League games. And at that stage, you think, that's wonderful. But then when I then drop out of that, you then think, and it's not a slur on anyone. It's just you end up taking different paths in life. And that's where it's sort of lent itself to now. So as I say, there's maybe 3-4 players who I played with across a 8, 9, 10 year career who I probably stay in real close contact with. And
and they will stay on for a very long time. And I remember I recently had, this has not been released as yet, but I had Paul Ferris on my podcast. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest player to play for Newcastle United. Yeah. And he was speaking about how he built the relationship with Alan Shearer. Mm-hmm. And he says, so obviously in life, you build some relations. And some of them will last forever for multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. And it's so true that, we see this in your corporate life, in wherever you are. There's some people who will stick on with you forever for multiple reasons. Again, you kind of get along with each other because you have similar values, and then you stayed in touch. But the staying in touch is just by accident. It's usually because you like them and there's something about them that you appreciate, and it's reciprocated, and then you feel that you guys are friends for life. Now, this is one of the biggest learnings I've had in my life, where I kind of echo what you just said. At that point of time, you feel this is a band of boys. We're all together in it, But that's what happens, and people are very naive to feel that everybody's going to be together, stick together for whatever reason. I'm an army kid, so my dad retired as a colonel from the army, and I had seen multiple cities. I finished my school from 11 different schools. So for my 12 years of schooling, I changed 11 schools, and we used to feel all the time, especially on your 8th or 9th standard, you would feel, man, these are my friends. And we're not in touch at all. And then you suddenly, in your life, you keep changing tracks, and you keep changing the kind of people you interact with, and you have new chapters in your life. And not everybody is going to be part of every chapter of your life. There are some people who are going to be part of one chapter, some the other. And when you come to life coaching, I've seen people carry a lot of baggage. And because of that, they're not able to do well in their as they move forward because they have that baggage. I'm sure you see that. So for people who kind of are living in their past, how do you tell them to move forward, move on, and change things about themselves?
Well, it's a really great question, because you alluded to it earlier. When a player, for example, a professional athlete, leaves their sport, they sometimes, you see it, and sometimes it's well publicised, that they'll struggle.
Yeah.
They'll struggle. They might, develop a drug addiction, or they might gamble, or they might drink, or they might, you see them in different realms of life. And a lot of the reason this, I'm curious around my mind always, so I'm always inquisitive with this, is because they've never replaced, if you want to call it that, or enhanced what they were getting from these vehicles of life. So, for example, from football, they might have got incredible amounts of adulation, praise, significance and importance, purpose from it. And then they leave that life, and then all of a sudden, if they're playing in the lower leagues, they might have to then go and get a job. And this isn't being, rude in any way, but from doing that to then sitting in a 9 to 5 in an office, being told what to do without any of these four things, a person, an individual then has core emotional needs and values where they're clinging on to that. And so they'll do everything that they can to try and relive those days. They'll try and do everything they can to try and go back to that time. They'll try and, not want to face reality now. So they'll develop a drink or a drug or whatever it may be as a way of trying to escape this reality to try and deal with the past. Now, part of my work, as you say, is around recognising that through life we have these vehicles, whether it will be in relationships, whether it be through work, career, whatever it may be. Now, these relationships at that time are serving us. If it's in football, what's it giving me currently? If I can take those four things of what I alluded to before, and I can take that and create a model, or we can create a model here that allows you to feel just as fulfilled, just as, significant, adulation, praise, all these different things that you used to get from it over here now, you can, as people say, let go of the past. Oftentimes, this is quite crude in there in the analogy, people say the best way to get over someone else is to get under someone else. Now, not always the best advice as a general way, but what they're saying is get your needs met in a new way now, so you'll be able to let go of that.
A rebound is never fucking good.
There we go. But my point is on a life coaching, business, career type sense, this is what keeps people stuck.
Yeah.
Because they're so focused on everything that happened back here, because they're not currently meeting those needs in their updated life.
Do you think, Matt, it's because people fear and believe that when I did well, it happened by accident and not with competence? Do you see that often?
All the time. All the time. It was one of my things. I was always fortunate to be here. I was lucky to be here. I acknowledged that I was quite driven in my mind, but, I'm not sure, this isn't really me who's done this. And when that happens, you're 100% right. We go, the self-belief, the confidence, that side of it that has, no, I've put in the 13 years of work to get this professional contract. I'm the one who didn't go out drinking. I'm the one who didn't go to those parties. I'm the one who wasn't distracted. And when everyone was doing this, I was in bed early. We ignore all of those things, and we focus on, you know what, if that hadn't have happened last week, I wouldn't have been here. And we give the power and control over to something that has no
role to play, actually.
Exactly, there it is. It has no role to play whatsoever. But we do that because then we go, I was just lucky and this. And so it's easier to stay stuck in the past rather than to put that time, effort, energy, whatever it is in again. And that maybe not work because I might have been lucky last time. Let me just hide behind this luck virtue of what I said. Then it stops me from even trying.
So now how do you deal with people like this? You meet them all the time. You're coaching people. And when you meet someone like this, I'm sure it just makes you relive, oh man, I've fucking been there, done that. But you can't tell it to them. People have to walk their own path.
Perfect, exactly.
Right? So what do you do to make them believe in themselves? And how do you get them to walk the path?
Well, I think the way that we operate as humans, we work on two forms, pain and pleasure. And we're either trying to avoid pain or we're trying to gain pleasure. Now, for most people, they'll do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. So what I mean by that is most people will do more to try and stay out of debt than they will do to become a millionaire.
Yeah.
And so trying to light them up and excite them by this possibility is going to be great for you, it doesn't really ignite it within them. So a part of my coaching, and I'm quite direct at times depending on who I'm working with because I want to get results for people, is that we'll lean on the quote unquote the pain side of things. And we will look at, and through the sort of therapeutic methods that I use, we'll look at everything that what you're currently doing. How is that conjuring up a place of where you don't want to be? What is why you're currently doing, where you're stagnating, where you're dwelling, where you're plateauing, the current place not in alignment with who you are? Because when that happens, it drums up in a very secure and professional way. It drums up a pain that makes me go, I need to change it.
Yeah.
Because, we all know we should eat healthier. We all know we should go down the gym more. We all know we should, go and get more steps in. We all know this. That's the pleasure. But why don't we? When we do is when we go to the doctor and they say you've got high cholesterol, you've got early onset heart disease, you could keel over any moment, and all of a sudden we all become vegans overnight. Because in that moment, though, the pain is the driver for someone to say, you know what, I can't stay in this current way. Let me change this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be required that if someone isn't getting excited by the pleasure of what can be, what can happen, we lean on the pain, and that ignites a fire within someone where they're willing to do something about it. And as you said, though, perfectly, it's never about what I think. It's always about uncovering it within the individual who I'm working with. They need to walk their own path. Otherwise, it's just, Matt told me to do this. Matt recommends I do this. No, the way that I work is I'm not interested in me. I'm interested in you and your model of the world. Because if I can help you understand that and then use my coaching methods of what I do, it's your solutions as well. Then people own it. Then they stay on track.
Matt, what's the kind of people who you get who come to you for coaching, and run me through the process of you're very young to be a coach, and then that's good. We need more young coaches in the world who who are not talking at from 30,000 feet above the sea. They're talking like brass tacks, right? And I've seen your work, but I don't want to steal the thunder. I want you to talk about it. From the point a person comes to you and says, Matt, I need some help. How do you start? Run me through the process.
So at this stage, it can be anyone from professional athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, directors, to university students or teenagers and everyone in between. Initially, it was naturally in football and sport because naturally of my background.
Yeah.
But as my passions grew and my work's been more widely known, people from all walks of life, and this will span across to LA, Toronto, Singapore, Cyprus, Norway, all people I've been working with in recent times. So like I just alluded to just then, generally people come to me when they're faced with a pain. Generally, when someone feels good and they feel amazing and this and that, is only a very few amount of people, this is what makes this successful, incredibly successful, that are willing to take themselves apart mentally and emotionally and rebuild. There's only a very few amount that do that. So generally it's when people will be stuck with a limiting emotion, a limiting belief. So anxiety, fear, worry, stress, overwhelm, OCD, these types of things. And it might be affecting performance related, i.e. it's affecting me stepping on the pitch, it's just affecting me at work, or it might be personally related. So, it's affecting my ability to be a great parent, it's affecting my ability to be a husband or wife, it's stopping me from things extreme like leaving the house or different. It's really grown in that way. And my work will always allude to, like I explained before, having a consultation, understanding someone's model of the world, understanding why they are where they are, what has potentially caused it, but most importantly, what is it that they are looking for from this? Because some people are saying, I'm in this place and I want to be confident, in control, doing this. Some people just say, I just want to be out of this situation.
And they have no clarity of where they want to go.
Right.
They definitely don't want to be where they are now.
Bingo.
But they don't know where they want to go.
Right. But it's like driving a car. If I just said to you, you know, I don't want to be stuck on my driveway. Great. But where do you want to go? Oh, I don't know. I just don't want to be stuck on my driveway. And then eventually I get you to reverse off the driveway and you realise that's not where you want to be. So when I understand that I don't want to be on my driveway, where I actually want to be is in Manchester, we have a direction of where we're heading. Then my role is helping an individual drive that path. I'll never drive it for them, because this is what keeps people, in my opinion, stuck in therapy for years, because we become reliant and or dependent on someone else, with this analogy, driving the car for us. I'm interested, and this is a weird analogy, but I'm interested in helping the individual drive the car.
Yeah.
I'll support, I'll coach, I'll guide, I'll advise, but I won't drive it. Because the moment I drive it, they become dependent.
Right. And this is where I think this is where the challenge comes in for coaches. You're not in control.
Right.
But you're trying to help the person in control to make the right decisions, and you don't even want to make decisions for them. You want them to make their own decisions.
Correct.
So how do you then predict outcome?
Because, okay, so to break that down, it's a great question. To break that down, I'm never interested, as you say, in telling someone what to do, because who the hell am I to tell someone what to do? Who's anyone to tell us what to do? I'm interested in them taking their path. And if they say to me, you know what, Matt, I want to be incredibly confident, I want to be able to step out on that football pitch, or I want to get on that plane and fly and see my family, or I want to drive that car for the first time in 30 years, all of the above I've worked with, I'm like, cool, I know where you're going. My role is to help you get there. And if I can say, I'm very good at keeping people true to that outcome, and using the coaching and therapeutic skills of what I do to get them free from initially what they're feeling, but then allowing them to own the fact that this is where we're going. You've come to me because you want a said result. I respect that, I'll honour that, but I'm not going to waver on that now.
Right.
And then this is where I'm working with the client in ways that I explained before, about constantly understanding their model of the world, to understand that when these beliefs pop up, when this limiting emotion, yeah, but what if this happens? Yeah, but what if that happens? I'm almost edging like this to go, you've got this, I'm supporting you, but I'm not doing it for you. And before they know it, they look back over the last 2, 3, 4 weeks and they go, wow, can't believe what I've just done. Can't believe what I've done during that time. So it's always a beautiful dance, I see it as, you know, I'm always dancing with someone. I never know what their steps are going to be, but I have faith in my ability to dance, and I learn the steps along the way, but along that way we're going to complete a dance together, and this is where we're going. And that's always the beauty of someone's journey. So that's the bit I love.
It takes me back, Matt, to 2009. And so when I left my corporate world, I started a business school. I used to be the head of talent acquisition for Bank of America, and I always saw that there's a gap between what the industry wants and what the B schools are producing. So typically top of the line business schools in India, like their talent is like amazing. And it's at the point of entry, because the competitive exam to get in is so difficult that whoever gets in is anyways very smart. Now after this, the tier 2 was absolutely appalling, the kind of people we would get. And I said, this is a great opportunity. I need to create this. And I started this business school, and I still remember this, what you said just triggered something for me. 2009-11, I had 2 boys who now are doing extremely well in their corporate career. And I still remember this discussion. This boy is called Karan Kakade. And I said, Karan, you have the potential of doing so well. And you could do this. And he says, no, but I'm not from a top business school. What are you even talking about? I said, don't limit yourself, right? You have it, you got this, man. You can do it. And then he came, I met him after like 10 years now. He came to the UK and he met me and he says, I go back and think about it, man. We were just self-limiting ourselves by thinking. And now that I'm in the corporate world, I'm doing so well. And those 2 boys, both of them, are absolute rock stars in where they are. They work with multinationals. They work with companies they never could have thought that they would work for. And the only reason they thought they would not be able to work for them was self-limiting beliefs. They were brilliant guys in terms of, in terms of resilience, in terms of being able to put the hard work, bend their back and do what's required to be done. But they just thought that, nah, this is not, I don't think I'm cut out for this. And now they realize that, fuck, man, it was not difficult. So when you said that, when I look back and see, dude, fucking, I've come a long way. And I've come a long way because, and I had, honest to God, I had no role to play. As a coach, and as a coach for them, my only job was to let them see their own potential and guide them when it was required. But they will walk the path. They will do the hard work. I mean, coach's job is so good. We technically need to do fuck all, but we need to impact the outcome. Let them do everything. It's very difficult. Sometimes I just try to figure out what the fuck do we do as coaches, and it's because we have to be hands off is what makes the job so fucking difficult.
Right, because most people, you're exactly right, and it's a great story because you're absolutely bang on. What I see is most people want to just go, just do this, and you'll be fine. But then that person, whoever it is that you work, they're never going to do it. They're never going to learn. They're never going to be in a place. They're always going to be reliant, dependent. And this is where I alluded to at times, and this isn't bashing therapy in any way, but it can sometimes keep people caged in that because it's a process of never actually, generally, it's never a place of that person putting themselves first, taking control and putting themselves. It's the therapist who's taking them through that constantly.
Yeah.
And they do wonderful jobs, but it's oftentimes not the most beneficial long term, in my view. And so exactly like what you said there is so true, because it can sometimes be the biggest dance of these limiting beliefs. I mean, I had them when I first started this. You start and, all I know is how to kick a football around a field. And now all of a sudden I'm going to start this business, and I'm in my, at that time, late 20s, and I'm, God, can I do this? Are people going to judge my age? Like, is this going to, can I even help people in this way? And I remember like my first client when she jumped on Zoom call with me and this and that, and I'm like, can you actually do this? And, so it's the same, like none of us are robots in that sense, but as your friend alluded to, it's these limitations. This isn't my quote, but I believe it's so true. The only thing that stops us is the bullshit reasons we tell ourselves as to why we can't have it. Yeah. And it's true, because when you think about it, if anything, any belief, any story that you're telling yourself doesn't serve you, it's bullshit.
It is.
It's bullshit. Because regardless of how valid it is, regardless of how true it is, this isn't invalidating or dismissing what anyone's ever been through, but we're the ones who are suffering if we're carrying that story around.
Yeah.
So it's bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's often like what you said there, and I'm pleased to hear that those two guys are now smashing it, because he's obviously got to a stage where he's stripped back those limitations and said, right, this is the way I'm going to live. So
yeah, Karan Kakade Karthik Goda, man, I can never forget it. 2009, it's been fucking 15, 16 years. And I always give that example. And there were multiple cases like this. I had students who, so we were a tier 2 business school, brand new. I can tell you, I have students today who work for Amazon, work for Facebook, first work for LinkedIn, HP, Apple, top of the line. They would have never in their entire life, and if I put each one of them on this hot seat and ask them, they would say, fuck off, man, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen, you're fucking deluded.
Right.
And I was not, because I could see the potential. I had been in the other side of the table. In the corporate world, you're not fucking asked about where you're coming from. It's what value you bring.
Absolutely.
Right? And as long as you know and you have clarity of thought as to what you bring on the table and you're good with your work, most of our work in the corporate world, which you would have realized, is not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward, right? If you can manage to do things, and if you say what you do and do what you say, most problems are solved just by that. And it's just about helping people build their self-confidence. And surprisingly, most people don't have it. Most people don't believe in themselves.
And no, 100% agree. Most people, we all have a fear of failure and a fear of not achieving, and a fear of judgment and these types of things. But most people live in the limitation box, as I call it. And they live a life based on the box that allows them to do. So like, for example, the perimeter of this table, I'll be free as I want. as long as it's within this box. I'll live exactly how I need to, as long as it's in this box. And, you know, the moment they take a step outside of that box, all of a sudden then worry, fear, anxiety, doubt, these things step in. So, get myself back in that box as quick as I can. And it's, you know, it's common sense when you know, but as we know, common sense isn't so common.
Oh.
The moment you take that step out of that, and this is where the whole term, you know, feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable comes, that perimeter increases.
Mm-hmm.
That perimeter increases again. That perimeter increases again. Before you know it, you're on a football field. Before you know it, you're on a cricket pitch. Before you know it, you know, your perimeter has become so large that playground that you used to once live in that box with is now just a small segment of that huge pitch in which you're playing.
And you thought that was the end of the world.
Right, exactly.
That's where it was. And I think, you know, when you look at some data, like this is hard data. I don't know the exact number, but I can say this with great confidence. More than 80% of billionaires and millionaires are first generation. It's a fucking joke or what? I mean, which basically means when you come back to say you need to have X, Y, and Z as resources, or if you don't have money, you can't make money, is fucking bullshit. Because if 80% plus, more than, so just 20% of the people have inherited wealth, 80% of them have started from a scratch, built $1 million business, means you can do it as well. So when somebody tells me it's very difficult to do it, 100%, but it's not impossible. And just because you have money doesn't mean it's going to be easier for you. I don't believe it is. I think it's in fact, contrary to popular belief, I think if you have a lot of money, if you inherited a lot of money, you'll fuck over more than you would fucking grow it, because you've never built it yourself. You don't understand the importance of money. You don't understand the importance of resources. I've always seen entrepreneurs who are frugal, who've not seen money all their life, tend to do better. Look at example. I mean, who would have imagined someone like a Ben Francis would become a billionaire? And he comes from absolutely nothing. He should be a role model for people, you know, in terms of, and in a market which, if somebody would have said, there would be something like a Gymshark decade or 15 years back who would come and become the top 5 or 10 players in the world in a market which is so capital intensive, nobody would have believed it, right? And after him, obviously a lot of people have wanted to do this, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of time ignorance is bliss. If you believe in something and don't look at everything that's around you and just go on and do your shit, you kind of tend to do well. Matt, tell me is there any case study that you can tell us about where you can, you know, give us, you quote somebody who's done extremely well. If you can't give names, that's all right. But, you know, the journey where you felt that you feel you've done a great job and they're very happy with the outcome they've had in their life.
Yeah, I mean, plenty. I think someone's definition of success, I'm always very careful to make sure I'm clear on what I believe to be success and what they do. Because, you know, like I said, I've worked with people who haven't left their home in 2-3 months. I've worked with people who haven't driven a car in 30 years or haven't been on a plane in 21 years, you know.
Fuck.
All of these different things, and then they come to see me, and within a few weeks, you know, they're flying to Switzerland to see their family. You know, they're driving down the motorway and they're looking at me on the next session like, what did you just do in the last session? Like, looking at me like I've got like 7 foreheads or something. And it's because the definition of success of when I go through this with someone is, like I said, this is why I'm always very clear from the start. Where is it that you are? And where is it that you want to be? Because once I've got that, I hold on to that like it's, you know, my last bit of hope. And that's where we're getting. Come rain, come wind, come shine. That's what you've asked me by working with me, is to take you here. Sometimes that can be a week, sometimes that can be 2. So I think in terms of those success stories, you know, there's so many. I mean, this is a bit different, but I had a lady come to me last year, and she come to me initially because she was struggling with a little bit of stress, and I was like, okay, cool, we'll do this. And she turns up on the first call, signs up to a program with me, turns up on the first call. This is after a detailed consultation. She looks grey, like grey. And so I looked at her and I sort of wanted to be a bit conscientious. I said, are you okay? And she said, Matt, I've got to be honest with you, I wasn't fully open during our call. She said, I haven't eaten in 6 days. She
Ooh.
says, I haven't eaten in 6 days. She said, I'm having panic attacks daily. She's like, I've got to a stage now where I'm not leaving the house. I haven't driven my car in the last 3 weeks. She said, I've been laid off work. She's like, doctors prescribed me medication and everything else in this way. I think I'm going to get myself sectioned.
Wow.
And so when you're in that position, this is where I talk about that perimeter of growth. When I'm in that situation, if I'm going, oh no, I just need to stay here. I can't leave an individual in that place. I can't. So when things like that happen, it makes you grow. I'm in a situation there where I need to step up. I need to find solutions. And it's not like, okay, let's do a journey here for 3 weeks. This needs to be someone who now gets these. And lo and behold, she was an 8-week program with me. But within that first session, we was doing some things where she was eating and, she was able to regain some strength. 8 weeks later, she's driving, she's this, she's that, she's on a plane, she's doing these things.
Amazing.
18 months later, now she's living her life, like still flying, hasn't taken that step back, no panic attacks, no anxiety, no debilitating ways that restricts her in that manner. And when I look at that, if I'm looking at my version of success, that sometimes means a lot more to me than when a professional athlete comes to me and says, you know what, Matt, I want to go and play even better in the Premier League. I've worked Premier League footballers who say, I'm in this place, I want to break into that first team and I want to start playing more regularly. I'm like, great, let's go and do this and do that. And then you see that happen, you're like, yeah, great. But for me personally, when I'm looking at that and I know the individual of where that young lady was and the journey, I look at that and I go, that's my version of success.
Well, I think that's fucking crazy.
And that's what I mean. And when you do this and, you're faced with these situations and you have to, like I said about the dance, you have to learn those steps quickly. But there's such enormous growth within it that I thrive off it. I love it. I trust what I do. I know what we do and I lead with that, and it always produces some pretty cool things.
So I've got 2 questions on this. So one, what was that magic pill that you gave her that got her there? And second, I've read things about what you've done, which is your MEM model, right? Which is the mindset and
emotional mastery.
Yeah. Yep. Is this what you say is the most important thing for people to succeed in life, or to just move from where they are and where they want to be?
Yes, like I say, to answer the second question first, I think that it is never my role, as I said, to tell you what you should be doing out there. Out there is completely someone's prerogative, whether they want to run for president or be the best parent they can be. Whatever it may be, that's never my prerogative to tell anyone. I am simply here to show you everything that goes on behind the scenes, emotionally, mentally, and the way that you can navigate the situations that might crop up in your life. And that's always been, when I've started this work and it's grown, that's always been my main focus in doing that. And as I said, I've derived that from my program, which is the Mindset and Emotional Mastery program. And when that comes to what's the magic pill that I do with her, I'm qualified and certifications in many different coaching models and therapies and hypnotherapy, NLP, life coaching, these different areas amongst a few others. And I use a blend of these models added with, like us all, personal experience. And when you start to learn that, you start to see certain patterns within people. And, there's billions of people in the world, but there's only so many emotional patterns that people run. Because when you strip it all back, you can start to see why this individual hasn't eaten in 6 days. Why, when they go to, I know it sounds so in detail, but why when they go to put that food in their mouth, why there's that blockage, why there's that phobia of following through. And people just go, what do you mean? Just swallow. But for some people, it's a real physical, I can't swallow. And so when I do that, whether it's through an NLP technique, whether it's through a light form of hypnotherapy, whether it's through some direct coaching that I do, and I do a lot of physiology coaching, or whether it's for a form of life coaching, whatever it may be, I draw on these different techniques, or whatever you want to call them, models that I have, to make the best piece fit. And added to that fact, when you work with however many it's been, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people at this stage from around the world, you start to see there's only so many patterns that show up within people. And if I can identify the pattern, understand the model of the world, I know what size shape fits that size hole. And then when I can do that, I can get there quite quickly. And that was the case with her.
And how did you, so let's go back to from football to coaching. Now, when you decided that obviously as an athlete, you've had experience and now I want to be a coach, what certifications did you pick on? How long did that take you to get there? And your journey from being a coach, just starting off, and to till date, what's changed for you as well?
Well, when you said how long did it take to get there, I'm still going. I think the problem with some is, and it goes in any area of life, is we think that we've cracked it, we think that we've made it, we think that we know what we need to know. And, you know, I've had conversations with wonderful minds who are teaching the same thing that they were 40 years ago. Now, there's certain frameworks, of course, that stand the test of time. But if we're not constantly developing what we're learning and things like that, then we're just stagnating. So from that sense, I'm always learning, I'm always reading, I'm always going on new courses or new qualifications. What that looked like for me initially is, like I said, I started with, when I was football, fitness.
Correct.
Now, the reason I got into fitness was because, one, it was an easy transition. But for me at that stage, and I was always curious, you know, I'd come home from training, I'd watch YouTube trainings, or I'd read books, even when I was playing football, around psychology and human anatomy and things like this. And so I did that qualification in personal training, one, because I needed an income and fitness was an easy way, but two, because it gave me a deep understanding of human anatomy. And if I started to understand human anatomy in a deeper way, I could understand a little bit more around the physiological side of things. From there, the most quote-unquote basic qualification was in life coaching that I got. And I started to learn that, and I remember, again, I was still playing part-time at that time, and I'd come home and I'd sit there at the dining room table and do these courses and submit my essays and everything like this, and that qualification come through. And then I remember straight away after that, I got into neuro-linguistic programming, which I'd learned from someone at that stage who basically, there was a model of what I liked. And I was like, oh, I can learn from that. What qualifications have they got in neuro-linguistic programming? Then when COVID happened, I really went down a route of really deep diving into it, and I did a really deep hypnotherapy program.
Where was this?
It was all online, like during COVID at the time, because obviously it was like that, but it was live sessions, and you had to work with people and submit these things and submit live recordings for all of these qualifications. And it was a method that is still widely known now. It's a form of hypnotherapy called rapid transformational therapy, RTT.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah. And I got that, and I got that qualification, and it gave me a deep understanding. But the key thing is, when I did all of these, they all gave me elements of what I wanted to create, but none of them were the actual thing. None of them were the actual where I saw myself and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to inflict change. I would do the NLP course. I was like, that was a great course. That's a great qualification to have. But it missed a bit. So I'd like, do the hypnotherapy, because that'll give you it. No, but that doesn't have that. And that's where now the MEM program, the Mindset and Emotional Mastery program of what I do, it's a blend of all of these things added with my own source of experience and things of what I do, and obviously things that I've learned since then, to put a program together that, as I say, I'm not looking to coaches at this stage, but that helps create those shifts. And so I know that's probably quite a detailed answer there, but that's the general journey of where it's led to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things I've noticed, coaches who've done well in life, they have their own secret sauce. It's not by just doing some courses that you would become a great coach.
Agreed.
Two things. A, you should have had the life experience. And I think just like we say, entrepreneurs and business owners are built slightly differently in their mindset. Similarly, coaches are also very different in their mindset. You're always trying to get yourself in a position where you're better than your previous version, and you want to change that as often as possible. Like that, I think one of the things that's common between coaches who do very well and who don't do well is their hunger to know more. And like you said, I'm still going. You want to constantly add to yourself so that you've got those life skills that you can help people grow. So I want to ask you this question. I'm sure you've coached a lot of entrepreneurs and businessmen. Do you think that they have got a different mindset, and how do you recognize that this person is like? There are a lot of people who I've spoken to and have said, you're not cut out to be an entrepreneur, right? I can see that from a mile. So what do you think is a hallmark of a good? What's the kind of mindset you need to have to be a good entrepreneur or a businessman?
In a very blanket, easy way of explaining that, I would say your ability, your threshold of being able to deal with uncertainty. Because most people, they are wired for the opposite. They want routine, they want structure, they want, I know where I am, I know what time I'm clocking in, I know what time I can clock off, I'm going to be home at this time, I'm going to get this train, I'm going to do it like this. Entrepreneurship, business ownership, we know that there's no such thing.
It's on the fucking fly.
There's no such thing. There is no such thing. There is a certain amount of structure, but you think you've got a structure, and then all of a sudden that's out the window and something else changes.
Yeah.
And it always makes me laugh because we have a team who works with me now, and if people sometimes interview for roles and they're like, I want to be a business owner and I want to do this, and because you get to go and play golf whenever you want, and you understand, and I'm like, you don't understand half of it. You just see that the newspaper headline, but you haven't seen everything of what's happened for you to get to that stage. And it's always funny because I think the hallmark of entrepreneurship, in my opinion, from the people that I've worked with, is simply their threshold of being able to deal with uncertainty. The more you can roll with the tide, the more that those waves can come crashing in and you can keep a sturdy ship, the better the entrepreneur. Because it's like business is the same as finance, is the same as anything in life. We go through seasons. And during summer, everything's dandy, everything's lovely, and you go along. That moves into autumn and things start to change. But then all of a sudden winter hits, and all of a sudden we need to batten down the hatches here and this and that. And then spring, things start to move again. And it's that constant cycle.
Yeah.
Constant cycle of where that's going to turn. And for some people, that can be day by day. That is always the number one thing that I see, because I've had family members going to start a business 3 to 6 months in, no, I'm just going to go back to that 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Because it's that threshold of being able to deal with the waves of uncertainty that I believe is the absolute foundation of it.
Yeah. I think similar. I think for me it's your ability to handle stress that comes from uncertainty. I think the challenge is, as entrepreneurs, we are carriers of stress. We don't get stressed. We should fucking stress the world out, but it should not impact us at all. Because I mean, I'm telling you, Matt, I remember days, man. I had to run a payroll. Your payroll of 100 grand to run on the 7th. And on the 5th, you are on fucking minus 10,000 pounds. And you can't show your employees or anybody because you are the fucking captain of the ship. If you look stressed, the entire organization is fucking stressed. And especially in a small business, when you are within your people, you're talking, you're right there, and they see you every day. And if they see you stressed, they say, man, fucking hell, something's not right. And that impacts the entire organization. So you have to wear that mask all the time when you're an entrepreneur. Everything is good. If not, it will be good at some point of time. So you somehow fucking managed to do this. I remember I was doing this podcast with Kyle Harris. Kyle is from, he runs a studio in Manchester and in, I think in Manchester and in Leeds, and the opening one in Liverpool. And he said, 2 days before the fucking event, we didn't have the bikes. And we were doing fucking pre-sales. For a cycling studio, we didn't have bikes. But he said, if it took for me to take one bike at a time from one place to the other, I would have fucking done that. But I would make that happen. And the team is insulated from that. So you're doing whatever it takes for you to get that done without getting stressed. Because a lot of times I feel when you get stressed out and when you're, like you said, if there's uncertainty in something, you just lose your shit.
Completely.
And most people, like, I don't understand this pseudo entrepreneurship. Like, I have this discussion with so many people where they say, you know, I'm happy to be an entrepreneur if somebody takes care of my normal living expenses. I said, dude, that's not a fucking entrepreneur. You have no safety net if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you believe that you have bills to pay, guess what? Every entrepreneur has bills to pay, but your bills go out last. You will miss payments. You will have fucking people knocking on your door. But that's entrepreneurship. If you're not willing to pay that price for it, you have jobs in the market, you can go back. And like you said, I know a lot of people who do 3 to 6 months and say, fuck it, man. I'm not doing this, too much stress for me. You know, and you also, I think, need to have very supportive people around you. You know, if if you have a partner, you have to be very clear, dude, this is going to be fucking hell of a ride. You know, it's a roller coaster.
It's so, I don't think that she'll mind me saying this, but it's so funny you allude to that point, because when this is slightly off topic, but when I proposed to my wife, which was in December of 2022, I remember we was in Bruges and I proposed on this lovely little bridge, and she said yes, and it was a lovely moment. And I said, and I remember the words, I said, I just hope that you've known that you've brought into a life of never-ending growth and improvement. And she said, what does that mean? I went, you'll find out. Because I remember it clear as day. It was literally 30 seconds to a minute after we got married. Got engaged. I said this to her. And I still say it to her now, because it is exactly as you said there. If you've got, it's amazing that she followed through, wasn't it? But it's... you have these people who have the best ideas, the best intentions, the best will in the world. But if you haven't got, as you say, that supportive network, especially in the immediate team around you, then it's like trying to push a boulder uphill. It's eventually that thing's going to become incredibly, incredibly heavy to do on your own. Yeah. So, I mean, it just reminded me as you said that then, because I still say it to her now. But she's still on board, which is the main thing.
Tell me, what's the role of fitness in people's lives in terms of, I think a lot of people think fitness or just training, physical training, just impacts and you build muscles or, it impacts you physically. But I think it has a huge impact on your mindset as well.
Without question. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. Like, apart from, the generic, everyone knows that, getting out, running or fitness is good for your mental health with these types of things. There's things that you won't get elsewhere, I don't believe, without really challenging yourself physically. A mental clarity. There's a pride. There's a feeling of worth. There's a feeling of, achievement. All of these things that come through fitness. There's that dopamine hit of achieving these certain targets or number of reps. I know that sounds quite generic, but I'm a huge believer in it. I mean, after my professional football career, it wasn't as if I just stopped and got into business. For a good while I ran marathons and ultramarathons. And I used to run these big 100-mile races, 40 hours of non-stop running. And people think, it's crazy. But I'm like, no, this is having a direct effect on my mental mindset and the way that I operate and things like this. And whether it's someone's into the gym or whatever it is for someone's personal way, I don't believe that it should be a nice to have, in my opinion. I think it's an absolute must. An absolute must.
Yeah, I think physical fitness, and we speak a lot about this as me being a part of the fitness industry, and we represent. I have had the opportunity of representing the industry at the World Health Organization, and people don't appreciate the fact that we impact mental health more than any kind of clinical intervention. If there are a few things, yes, obviously clinical depression is a different thing. Clinical issues are different, but the basic fundamental, a lot of problems can be solved very simply by making sure you're pushing yourself in the gym or physical fitness in itself. And it's one of those things which kind of keeps you going. you spoke about something which is so close to my heart. Like when people say, "Oh, this guy has done his Ironman," it's that doesn't tell me anything about his physical capabilities. It tells me about his or her mental capabilities.
Absolutely.
Because after a point of time, it's fucking insane to do that to your body. But it's because you've committed to yourself that you're going to do this. Yes, obviously you have to physically train or whatever. But the point is, beyond the point, what carries you through the entire thing is your willpower. And that resilience gets built from there. I remember way back, this is 2007, and I had not heard of what Ironman was. And I used to work with Standard Chartered Bank. And we used to have a guy called Mike Denoma. He was the CEO of the consumer bank at Standard Chartered Bank. And people were saying, "Oh man, this guy's coming in. He's an Ironman." The fuck is an Ironman?
Yeah.
And then they said, "Why the fuck would you do this to yourself?" And he was the one who initiated this with, the Standard Chartered Bank started sponsoring the marathons and everything. And he spoke about how important this was for mental strength. And not only the physical aspects. It's not about, you can have people who are so strong physically who won't be able to do this because they're just mentally not there.
Absolutely.
So I think it's more mental resilience than anything else.
100%. I think, and I'm in 100% agreement with everything that you've said there, because there's a great physical aspect to it. It's great to, feel that and, look great physically and all those wonderful things. But what it gives you up here is priceless. It's priceless. And I don't think that, we all come out with these sayings that health is wealth and these types of things. But when you really feel it, that's why, I can speak from personal experience. That's why when, I do an ultramarathon once and I'm like, never again, never again. It's the worst thing ever. 2 weeks later, I'm signing up for another one. Because when that immediate moment subsides, or when people do these fitness competitions or high roxes, it's the same thing, because you find a new level to yourself. And what it does up here is it opens new doors where previously there was only walls. And that for people, I think, is priceless, as I say.
Matt, last question for you. What keeps Matt Young going and keeps him young all the time?
Apart from my name, what keeps me going? Honestly, impact. When I first started this, I wrote down, I had this little notepad. I was living in a tiny little studio flat in Chelmsford at the time in Essex. And I was playing part-time football. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my whole thing, and I wrote it down, and it's still something I abide by now, it's on my wall at home, is mission to empower millions. That's all I wrote down. I need a mission to empower millions.
Wow. And
for me, growth and impact is what drives me, to a point where when I get engaged, I even say it then, apparently. But growth and impact is just what I constantly am searching for. How can I have more impact? How can I grow more? Mentally, emotionally, in all of these ways, through my work, through life, through relationships. And for me, the beauty of it, which I love, is I don't think I'll ever find the destination. That I love, because I'm like, when I think I've arrived somewhere, you haven't got nowhere, because that's just opened a new room full of people where I get to sit here and have a wonderful conversation with someone like yourself, where a year ago that wouldn't have been in my realm of thinking. Now, because of growth and because of impact, it opens doors here. In a year's time, who knows where we're going to be in 5 years' time? But if that's my guiding force every single day, that keeps me on the straight and narrow. That gives me such an energy and passion and drive that, honestly, I can't put that into words of how much that gives me an oomph for life. So I'd say that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me young. That's what keeps me thriving, is that whether I'm 31 or 91, I'll be doing this and looking to grow.
The journey is more important than the destination.
100%. Because once you get to the destination, it's great for what? A day or two of celebrating. Then you go, what's next?
Yeah. Dopamine levels reset.
Exactly. And
you
you're
want
like,
something more?
What's next? So I've started to let go of those destinations. They're wonderful. Enjoy them. I enjoy them along the way. I tip my hat to them. I soak them up in the moment. But with a very sort of without a pressure, but with a very core guidance that my focus now is on the journey of this. How can I enjoy the journey and grow and have impact along the way instead of just waiting for the destinations? Because if I do that, I'm going to have a much more fulfilled life in general, and hopefully, which my mission is, empower that to millions of others who can also do the same.
Amazing. Thanks, Matt.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. No, I've loved it. So thank you as well.